Hey guys, I'm Avigat and in this video we'll look at primitive data types in Java. These data types are used for storing simple values. So in the category of primitive types, firstly we have byte, which takes 1 byte of memory, and with this you can store numbers up to 127. Then we have short, which takes 2 bytes of memory, and with this you can store numbers up to 32,000. Then we have int or integer, by which you can store values up to 2 billion and it takes 4 bytes of memory. Then we have long, which takes 8 bytes of memory, and with this you can store even larger numbers. These were all the whole numbers, but to store decimal values, you have to use either float or double. So float takes 4 bytes of memory and it's sufficient for storing 6 to 7 decimal digits, while double takes 8 bytes and it's sufficient for storing 15 decimal digits. So then we have char or character, which takes 2 bytes of memory and it stores either a single character like an exclamation mark or a letter, for example A, B, or C, or ASCII values. What is ASCII, you may ask? ASCII is basically based on a simple idea of using numbers to represent text. So if you want to represent the letter A, you have to use the number 65. Similarly, if you have to represent the letter capital B, you have to use the number 66, and so on. The last data type is Boolean, which takes 1 byte of memory and it stores true or false values. So that was it for the data types. Now let's move on to some examples. So let's say you want to store someone's age. So for age you will need to use byte because byte can store values up to 127. We need to write byte and give the variable name. So age is equal to, let's say, 20. Okay, byte can store values up to 127, so you don't need int over here because int takes 4 bytes. And if the work can be done using 1 byte, then that's pretty good. So that's byte. Next, let's use another example. If I want to store someone's salary and that person's salary is 2 million, so we have to use int over here because int can store values up till 2 billion. So int salary is equal to 2 million and a semicolon. So like in English we use a comma to separate these big numbers. In Java you can use underscore to separate these numbers. Next, let's say you want to store someone's phone number and a phone number has 10 digits. So you won't be able to store that phone number using int. So you have to use long. So let's say long phone number is equal to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7, 6, 5 semicolon. And now it will show you an error. It says integer number too large because by default Java sees these numbers as integers. So even though we have defined the type of this variable as long, the Java compiler sees this value as int. So to change that, we need to add an L at the end, which represents long, and the Java compiler won't show the error. Now, if I want to store a price of an object, let's say it's 99.99. So for that, I'll use float, and I'll set that as, I'll call the variable price is equal to 99.99. Okay. Now it shows an error, incompatible types, possible lossy conversion from double to float. So again, by default, Java sees these decimal numbers as double. So even though we have defined a type as float, the Java compiler sees the value as double. So to change this, just like how we added an L over here to represent long, we need to add F over here to represent float. Now if I want to store a letter, or let's say if I want to store a symbol, I can use char to store that. So let's say char and symbol is equal to Let's say I want to store the dollar sign. So I need to do that in single quotes. Now I want to check if the person is too young to watch the movie. So for that I'll use Boolean, and I will name the variable is young is equal to, so is the person young, true or false? So let's just write true in this case. Doesn't matter. So yeah, those were all the primitive data types in Java and some examples. Hope you learned something, and please don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and see you next time. Bye.